Naomi Brooks was just trying to survive a rainy day in Chicago when a chance encounter with billionaire Julian Hart changed everything. But when worlds collide, can love really bloom? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The rain came down hard over Chicago that Thursday afternoon. Naomi Brooks pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders as she hurried down Michigan Avenue with a paper grocery bag. Her dark brown hair was already damp, and her worn sneakers splashed through puddles on the sidewalk. "Just great," she muttered to herself, feeling the bottom of the bag starting to give way. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she knew without looking who it was. Her landlord, Mr. Patel, had been calling all week about the rent she was 3 weeks late on. With a deep breath, she answered, "Hello, Mr. Patel. Miss Brooks, this is the 4th time I'm calling. The rent was due." I know, Naomi said, trying to balance the grocery bag while holding her phone. "I promise I'll have it by next week. The flower shop had a slow month and I had to pay the suppliers first, or I wouldn't have anything to sell. I understand your situation, but I have bills to pay too. If you don't have the full amount by Monday, I'll have to start eviction proceedings." Naomi felt her throat tighten. "Please, Mr. Patel, my mom lived in that apartment for 15 years before she passed. I just need a little more time." "Monday, Miss Brooks, that's all I can do." The call ended, and Naomi blinked back tears. She had exactly $237 in her checking account, and the rent was $1,100. There was no way she could come up with that kind of money in 4 days. Lost in her worries, she didn't notice the tear in the grocery bag until it was too late. The bottom split open, sending apples rolling across the wet sidewalk. A carton of eggs smashed on the ground, and a loaf of bread landed in a puddle. "No, no, no!" Naomi cried, dropping to her knees to gather her groceries. People walked around, some looking annoyed that she was blocking the sidewalk. No one stopped to help. She grabbed for an apple that was rolling toward the street, just as a sleek black limousine pulled up to the curb. The apple bumped against the car's tire and stopped. Naomi froze, mortified. Great, now she was making a mess in front of some rich person. The rear door of the limo opened, and a tall man in an expensive suit stepped out. Instead of ignoring her or looking annoyed, he crouched down and picked up the apple. "Looks like you're having a rough day," he said, holding out the apple to her. Naomi looked up and felt her breath catch. She recognized him instantly from the business magazines and billboards around the city. Julian Hart, real estate mogul, and one of Chicago's most eligible bachelors. "I'm fine," she said quickly, taking the apple and avoiding his eyes. "Just clumsy." 2. Her surprise, Julian knelt beside her and started gathering the scattered groceries. "Let me help." "You don't have to do that," Naomi protested, embarrassed by her cheap groceries and the holes in her jacket sleeves. "Really, I can manage." Julian smiled, and Naomi couldn't help noticing how it softened his otherwise serious face. He had dark hair, neatly styled, and eyes that seemed to see right through her. "I insist," he said, collecting 2 more apples and the soggy bread. "Do you live nearby? I can give you a ride." Naomi shook her head quickly. "No thanks. I mean, thank you for helping, but I can walk." Julian looked at her, then at the rain coming down harder now. "At least take my umbrella," he said, reaching back into the limo and pulling out a large black umbrella. "I couldn't," Naomi said, but Julian was already opening it and holding it over her. "James," Julian called to his driver, "do we have a bag?" The driver quickly produced a reusable shopping bag with the logo of an expensive department store. Julian started placing Naomi's salvaged groceries into it. "Thank you," Naomi said quietly, finally accepting his help. "I'm Naomi, by the way, Naomi Brooks." "Julian Hart," he replied, though they both knew she already knew that. "Well, Mr. Hart, thank you for your kindness, but I should get going." Naomi took the bag from him, accidentally brushing his hand with hers. She felt a strange flutter in her stomach. Julian didn't move. "Are you sure I can't give you a ride? It's pouring." Naomi shook her head. "I'm only a few blocks away." That was a lie. She lived 1.5 miles from here, but the last thing she needed was for someone like Julian Hart to see her rundown apartment building. Julian seemed reluctant to let her go. "Well, at least take this," he said, handing her his business card. "In case you need anything." Naomi looked at the embossed card. "Julian Hart, CEO, Hart Developments." "I won't, but thank you," she said, tucking it into her pocket. Their eyes met again, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then Naomi stepped back, breaking the spell. "Goodbye, Mr. Hart." "Goodbye, Naomi Brooks," Julian said, standing still in the rain as she hurried away, clutching his umbrella. Back in her small apartment, Naomi peeled off her wet clothes and changed into dry ones. She looked around at the space she had shared with her mother until last year. The furniture was old but clean, the walls covered with family photos and her mother's collection of flower prints. It wasn't much, but it was home, at least for now. She put away the few groceries she had managed to save and made herself a cup of tea. The business card Julian had given her sat on the kitchen counter. On an impulse, she picked it up and ran, her fingers over the raised lettering. Julian Hart probably helped her out of pity, she thought. Men like him didn't look twice at women like her. She had learned that lesson the hard way with her ex-boyfriend, Derek. Derek had seemed so charming. At first, promising to help her invest her small savings so they could build a future together. Instead, he had taken off with $5,000, money that would have kept the flower shop afloat during the slow winter months. No, Naomi decided, she was better off alone. She tore Julian's card in half and dropped it in the trash. The next morning, Naomi opened Bloom and Grow, the flower shop her mother had started 20 years ago. The small store was tucked between a coffee shop and a bookstore on a side street off Michigan Avenue. The rent was high, but the location brought in tourists and downtown workers looking for fresh flowers. "Morning, Rosa," Naomi called to her. "Part-time employee, an older woman who had worked with Naomi's mother for years." "You look tired, Mihija," Rosa said, eyeing Naomi with concern. "Did you sleep?" "Not much," Naomi admitted, between worrying about the rent and replaying her embarrassing encounter with Julian Hart. Sleep had been hard to come by. "Well, we have that big order for the Harrison wedding to finish by noon," Rosa reminded her. "That should take your mind off your troubles." Naomi nodded and got to work, losing herself in the familiar routine of cutting stems and arranging flowers. By noon, the wedding order was ready, 10 centerpieces and 5 bouquets. Just as she was wrapping the last bouquet, the shop door opened. Naomi looked up, expecting the wedding planner who was supposed to pick up the order. Instead, Julian Hart walked in, looking even more handsome in a navy suit and light blue shirt. His eyes found hers immediately. "You forgot something yesterday," he said, holding up her wallet. Naomi's hand went to her pocket. How had she not noticed it was missing? "I found it after you left," Julian explained. "Your address was on your license, but I thought it might be better to bring it to your workplace." He glanced around the shop. "The flower shop on your business card?" Naomi took the wallet from him, careful not to touch his hand this time. "Thank you, I didn't even realize it was gone." Julian smiled. "No problem. Nice place you have here." Naomi looked around the shop, seeing it through his eyes. The worn wooden floors, the vintage display cases, the buckets of flowers giving the small space a riot of color and fragrance. "It was my mother's," she said. "She passed away last year. Arifei." "Sorry," Julian said, and he seemed to mean it. An awkward silence fell between them. Naomi fidgeted with a ribbon on the counter. "Well," Julian finally said, "since I'm here, I might as well buy some flowers." "Oh?" Naomi raised an eyebrow. "For someone special?" Julian's eyes held hers. "Maybe. What would you recommend for someone you've just met but can't stop thinking about?" Naomi felt her cheeks grow warm. "That depends on what message you want to send." Julian stepped closer to the counter. "How about, 'I'd like to see you again'?" Naomi's heart raced, but warning bells were going off in her head. Men like Julian Hart didn't date women like her. There had to be some kind of angle. "I think you're in the wrong shop, Mr. Hart," she said coolly. "There's a high-end florist in the Gold Coast that would be more your style." Julian looked taken aback. "Did I say something wrong?" "No," Naomi sighed. "But let's be real, you're you and I'm—" She gestured at herself and the modest shop around her. "This." "And what's wrong with this?" Julian asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Before Naomi could answer. The shop door opened again and the wedding planner bustled in. "Naomi, darling, are the Harrison flowers ready? We're already behind schedule." Naomi jumped into action, helping the woman load the flowers into her van. When she returned to the shop, Julian was still there, examining a bouquet of daisies. "My mother grew these in our backyard when I was a kid," he said quietly. "They were her favorite." Something in his voice made Naomi pause. Maybe there was more to Julian Hart than his money and his reputation. "Mine too," she admitted. "She always said they were the happiest flowers." Julian set the daisies down and looked at her, really looked at her, as if he was seeing something no one else had, bothered to see. "Have dinner with me tonight," he said. It wasn't a question, but it wasn't a demand either. Every instinct told Naomi to say no. Men with money had only ever brought her trouble. But there was something in Julian's eyes that made her hesitate. "Just dinner," he added, "at a restaurant of your choosing." Naomi thought about her empty refrigerator, her overdue rent, and all the reasons why mixing with someone from Julian's world was a bad idea. "Okay," she heard herself say, "but I picked the place and we split the bill." Julian looked like he wanted to argue about the bill but thought better of it. "Deal, I'll pick you up at 7. After he left, Rosa emerged from the back room with a knowing smile. "So, the handsome man in the expensive suit, he likes you. He's just being nice," Naomi insisted, but her stomach was doing flips. "Nice men in expensive suits don't look at women the way he was looking at you just for being nice," Rosa said with a wink. That evening, Naomi stood in front of her small closet, trying to find something suitable for dinner with one of Chicago's wealthiest bachelors. She settled on a simple blue dress that her mother had given her for her last birthday. It wasn't designer, but it was pretty and made her eyes look more blue than gray. At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a knock on her door. Naomi took a deep breath and opened it. Julian stood there holding a small bouquet of daisies. He had changed into dark jeans and a light sweater that made him look more approachable than his business suits. "Hi," he said, looking a little nervous, which surprised her. "These are for you." Naomi took the flowers, touched by the simple gesture. "Thank you. Come in for a minute while I put these in water." Julian stepped inside, looking around her apartment with interest. Naomi waited for him to make some comment about how small it was, but he didn't. "I like your place," he said instead. "It feels like a home." Naomi looked at him sharply, trying to detect any hint of condescension, but found none. "Thanks. It's not much, but it's mine. Well, as long as I can keep paying the rent." Julian's eyes softened. "Your mother's apartment?" Naomi nodded, placing the daisies in a simple glass vase. "We moved here when I was 10. She gave up a lot to keep this place." She paused, wondering why she was telling him this. "Anyway, should we go?" Julian followed her out, and Naomi was relieved to see there was no limo waiting. Instead, a sleek black Audi was parked at the curb. "I thought you might be more comfortable without the driver tonight," Julian explained, opening the passenger door for her. As they drove, Naomi directed him to a small Italian restaurant in her neighborhood. It was nothing fancy, but the food was good and the prices reasonable. "I come here a lot," she admitted as they sat down. The owner, Mario, was friends with my mum. As if on cue, a large, friendly man approached their table. "Naomi, Bella, and you bring a friend tonight," Naomi smiled. "Mario, this is Julian. Julian, this is Mario, the best chef in Chicago." Mario beamed at the introduction. "For you, my special table, and wine on the house." Julian thanked him, looking genuinely pleased at the warm welcome. As they settled in, Naomi studied Julian across the table. "You seem different tonight," she observed. "More relaxed." Julian loosened his shoulders. "Work mode off. I don't get many chances to just be me." "And who is that?" Naomi asked. "The real Julian Hart?" Julian looked thoughtful. "I'm still figuring that out myself. My father had very specific ideas about who I should be. Since he died 2 years ago, I've been running his company the way he would have wanted, but sometimes I wonder if that's what you want?" Naomi finished for him. Julian nodded, looking surprised at her insight. "Exactly. What about you? Was the flower shop always your dream?" Naomi took a sip of her wine. No, actually, I was studying to be a teacher when Mom got sick. I came home to help with the shop, and after she died, I couldn't bear to let it go. It was her dream, and now it's all I have left of her. Their food arrived, and the conversation flowed easily. Julian told her about growing up as the son of a demanding businessman, about his love for architecture that his father had dismissed as impractical, about his younger sister who was traveling the world against their father's wishes. In turn, Naomi shared stories about her mother, about their tradition of Sunday picnics in the park, about her dream of someday opening a community garden where city kids could learn about plants. By the time they finished their tiramisu, Naomi realized she had laughed more in one evening than she had in months. Julian wasn't at all what she had expected. Behind the wealthy businessman was a man with doubts and dreams of his own. When the check came, Julian reached for it, but Naomi was faster. "We agreed to split it," she reminded him. Julian looked like he wanted to argue, but respected her wishes. As Naomi calculated her half, she felt a pang of worry about her dwindling bank account, but pushed it aside. Her pride was worth more than money. Outside, the night air was cool but no longer raining. "Want to walk for a bit?" Julian suggested. They strolled through Naomi's neighborhood, their hands occasionally brushing. Julian asked questions about the local businesses, seeming genuinely interested in the community. "You really love this area," he observed. "I do," Naomi admitted. "It's not fancy, but it's home." When they reached a small neighborhood park, they sat on a bench under the stars. For a moment they were silent, comfortable in each other's company. "Naomi," Julian finally said, turning to face her, "I'd like to see you again." Naomi bit her lip. "Julian, I had a really nice time tonight, but I'm not sure this is a good idea." "Why not?" "Because we're from different worlds. Your world is full of galas and business deals and penthouses. Mine is struggling to make rent and counting pennies." Julian took her hand gently. "Maybe it's exactly those differences that make this interesting. You see the world in a way I never have. And tonight, for the first time in as long as I can remember, I didn't feel like Julian Hart, CEO. I just felt like a guy having dinner with a beautiful woman." Naomi's heart raced at his words, but fear still gripped her. The last time she had trusted a man, he had taken everything she had. "I've been hurt before," she said quietly, "by someone who pretended to care about me." Julian's eyes were serious. "I'm not pretending, Naomi. Let me prove it to you, one day at a time." Maybe it was the way he looked at her, or the simple honesty in his voice, but something made Naomi want to trust him, despite all her better judgment. "Okay," she said softly, "one day at a time." Julian smiled, and it transformed his face. Gently, he leaned forward and placed a soft kiss on her cheek. "I'll call you tomorrow." As he drove her home, Naomi felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. But as they pulled up to her apartment building, reality crashed back. On the door of the building was a notice, visible even from the street: eviction warning. Her landlord had made good on his threat. Julian saw it too. "Naomi, is everything okay?" Naomi felt the blood drain from her face. All the good feelings from their evening together vanished, replaced by crushing reality. "I have to go," she said quickly, opening the car door. "Thank you for tonight." "Naomi, wait." But she was already running up the steps, tears threatening to fall. The last thing she needed was for Julian Hart to see just how desperate her situation really was. Inside her apartment, Naomi sank to the floor, the eviction notice clutched in her hand. She had 3 days to come up with the money or lose her home. The home where she had grown up, where her mother had lived and died. As tears rolled down her cheeks, she wondered if there was anything left to sell. Her mother's silver tea set, the antique vase, would it even be enough? Her phone buzzed, with a text message from Julian. "I had a wonderful time tonight. Whatever's wrong, please let me help." Naomi stared at the screen. She could ask him for help. He probably wouldn't even miss the money. But something held her back. If she started their relationship by asking for money, what would that make her? She turned off her phone without replying and cried herself to sleep on the couch, dreaming of daisies and a pair of kind eyes that seemed to see right through her. The next morning, Naomi woke up with puffy eyes and a stiff neck from sleeping on the couch. The eviction notice was still clutched in her hand, a cruel reminder of her reality. She forced herself out of the apartment early, not wanting to run into Mr. Patel. At the flower shop, she threw herself into work, arranging bouquets with mechanical precision while her mind raced through options. "You look terrible," Rosa said bluntly as she arrived for her shift. "What happened to the glow from yesterday? Did the handsome man turn out to be a frog?" Naomi managed a weak smile. "No, Julian was perfect, actually. It's my landlord. I have 3 days to come up with 3 months' worth of rent or I'm out." Rosa's face fell. "Oh, mija, how much do you need? How much do you—" "About $3,300, Naomi said, the number feeling like a weight on her chest. "I've been behind since winter." "I could lend you some," Rosa began, but Naomi shook her head firmly. "No, Rosa. You have your grandchildren to think about. I'll figure something out." The shop door chimed, and Naomi looked up to see Julian walking in, carrying 2 coffee cups. He wore a gray suit today, but his smile was warm and familiar. Naomi's heart did a little flip despite her troubles. "Good morning," he said, setting one of the coffees on the counter. "I thought you might need this." "Thank you," Naomi said, taking the cup. The rich aroma of good coffee, much better than the instant stuff she usually drank, filled her nose. Rosa looked between them with a knowing smile and discreetly moved to the back room. "You didn't answer my text last night," Julian said, his voice gentle. "I was worried." Naomi stared down at the coffee. "I'm sorry, I had a lot on my mind." "The notice on your door?" Julian asked directly. Naomi's head snapped up. "That's not your concern." "It is if it's upsetting you," Julian countered. "Naomi, please let me help." "I don't need your charity," she said, her pride making her voice sharper than she intended. Julian looked hurt. "It's not charity to help someone you care about." The word care hung in the air between them. They had known each other less than 2 days, and yet something was growing between them, something that scared and thrilled Naomi in equal measure. "I hardly know you," she reminded him, though it felt like a lie. "Then get to know me," Julian said simply. "Come to my office today. I want to show you something." Naomi hesitated. She had a dozen arrangements to finish. "Just for lunch," Julian added. "1 hour. Then if you want me to leave you alone, I will." The sincerity in his eyes broke through her defenses. "Okay, 1 hour." Julian's face lit up. "Great. I'll send a car at noon." "I can take the bus," Naomi protested. Julian shook his head. "It's across town. Let me do this one thing for you." After he left, Rosa emerged from the back. "So, what did Prince Charming want?" "To have lunch," Naomi said, sipping the expensive coffee. "At his office," Rosa grinned. "Good. Maybe he can help with your situation." "I'm not asking him for money," Naomi said firmly. "I've only known him for a day." "Sometimes a day is all it takes to know," Rosa said with a wistful smile. "My Antonio asked me to marry him after one dance. We had 52 years together before he passed." "This isn't a fairy tale, Rosa," Naomi sighed. "Real life doesn't work that way." But at noon, when a black Audi pulled up outside the shop, Naomi still found herself smoothing her hair and checking her simple outfit in the reflection of the shop window. The drive to Julian's office took them into the heart of downtown Chicago. The driver pulled up to one of the city's most prestigious buildings, a gleaming tower of glass and steel that seemed to touch the clouds. In the lobby, the security guard greeted Julian by name and nodded respectfully to Naomi. As they rode the elevator to the top floor, Naomi tried not to show how intimidated she felt. Julian's office suite took up the entire floor. His assistant, a stylishly dressed woman in her 40s, stood as they entered. "Mr. Hart, your 1 o'clock call to reschedule and the contracts for the Riverside project are ready for your signature." "Thank you, Diane. This is Naomi Brooks. We'll be having lunch in my office. No interruptions, please." Diane smiled warmly at Naomi. "Of course. It's nice to meet you, Ms. Brooks." Julian led Naomi through a set of double doors into a large office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. One wall was covered with architectural drawings and models. "Wow," Naomi breathed, looking out at the spectacular view. "So this is your world?" Julian shrugged. "Part of it." He pressed a button and a section of the wall slid open to reveal a Small dining area. A table was set for two with covered dishes waiting. "I hope you like Italian," Julian said. "I ordered from that little place down the street from your shop." Naomi recognized the containers from her favorite lunch spot. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's no trouble," Julian insisted, pulling out a chair for her. As they ate, Julian told her about the project he was most passionate about, a mixed-use development that would include affordable housing and community spaces. "My father would have hated it," Julian admitted. "He believed in luxury properties only. But I see a different future for the city." Naomi was surprised. "That doesn't fit your public image." "My public image is mostly created by the business press," Julian said. "They see what they want to see. My father's son continuing his legacy." After lunch, Julian led her to the wall of drawings. "This is what I wanted to show you." He pointed to a detailed sketch of a garden space, complete with raised beds, a greenhouse, and a small amphitheater. "The community garden for the new development," he explained. "When you mentioned your dream last night, it got me thinking. The plan already included green space, but not with any specific purpose. What if it became the teaching garden you talked about?" Naomi stared at the drawings. "You're serious?" "Completely," Julian said, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "You have the knowledge and the passion. The project needs someone like you." "I don't have any experience with large-scale gardens," Naomi protested. "I just sell flowers." "You understand plants, and you understand people," Julian countered. "The rest you can learn. It's just an idea at this stage, but I wanted to share it with you." Naomi was touched. No one had taken her dreams seriously in a long time. "Thank you for showing me this," she said softly. Julian stepped closer to her. "There's something about you, Naomi Brooks. I can't explain it, but from the moment you were picking up apples in the rain, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you." His honesty took her breath away. "I'm just an ordinary person, Julian." "There's nothing ordinary about you," he said, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. The gentle touch of his fingers against her skin sent tingles down Naomi's spine. For a moment, she forgot about her troubles, lost in his gaze. The spell was broken by the buzz of Julian's intercom. He sighed and stepped back. "Mr. Hart, the Riverside investors are here early," Diane's voice announced. "I'll be right there," Julian replied. He turned to Naomi apologetically. "I'm sorry, this meeting is important." "It's fine," Naomi assured him. "I should get back to the shop anyway." "Can I see you tonight?" Julian asked. "I know a place with the best cheesecake in the city." Despite herself, Naomi smiled. "I'd like that." 7 o'clock, Julian suggested. "I'll pick you up at your place." As Julian walked her to the elevator, Naomi felt a mixture of excitement and fear. She was falling for him, and falling fast. But the eviction notice still loomed over her, a reminder that their worlds were vastly different. Back at the flower shop, Naomi found Rosa dealing with a rush of customers. She jumped in to help, grateful for the distraction. By closing time, Naomi was exhausted but still had the evening with Julian to look forward to. She hurried home to change, only to find Mr. Patel waiting in the hallway of her building. "Miss Brooks," he said, his expression stern. "I need to talk to you about the rent situation." Naomi's heart sank. "Mr. Patel, I'm working on it. I just need a little more time." He shook his head. "That's what I wanted to discuss. The strangest thing happened today. I received a check covering all your back rent, plus 3 months in advance." Naomi's mouth fell open. "What? From who?" "The envelope just had your name on it. Inside was a cashier's check, no name, no note. I assumed it was a relative helping you out." Naomi felt a cold shock of realization. Julian, it had to be. She had never told him exactly how much she owed, but it wouldn't be hard for someone with his resources to find out. "Thank you for letting me know," she said stiffly to Mr. Patel. "I'll look into it." Inside her apartment, Naomi paced furiously. How dare Julian pay her rent without asking? He had known her for all of one day, and already he was trying to fix her life with his money. When her doorbell rang at 7, Naomi yanked the door open, ready for a confrontation. Julian stood there, looking handsome in casual clothes, holding another small bouquet of flowers. You paid my rent, Naomi said without preamble. Julian's smile faded. I wanted to help. You had no right, Naomi said, her voice shaking. You don't even know me. I know enough to care about what happens to you, Julian said, stepping into the apartment. I saw how upset you were last night. So you threw money at the problem, Naomi demanded. Is that how you solve everything in your life, Julian? Just write a check and make it go away? Julian looked genuinely confused. I thought you'd be relieved. You were about to lose your home. That's not the point, Naomi cried, tears springing to her eyes. You didn't even ask me. You just decided I needed saving, like I'm some charity case. That's not how I see you at all, Julian protested. Then how do you see me? Naomi challenged him. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you see a poor, struggling girl who needs a rich man to rescue her. Julian set the flowers down on the coffee table. Naomi, I care about you. Is it so wrong to want to help someone I care about? It is when that help comes with strings attached, Naomi said, wiping angrily at her tears. Julian's face darkened. I never said there were strings attached. There are always strings, Julian, Naomi said bitterly, thinking of Derek and all he had taken from her. Men like you don't just give away money for nothing. As soon as the words left her mouth, Naomi regretted them. Julian looked like she had slapped him. Men like me, he repeated quietly. You've decided who I am based on what? My bank account? Naomi faltered. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? Julian interrupted. You talk about me judging you, but you've judged me from the moment we met. I'm just a rich guy who couldn't possibly understand real problems, right? The hurt in his eyes made Naomi's anger deflate. Julian, keep the rent money, he said, turning toward the door. Consider it a gift, no strings attached. I won't bother you again. Wait, Naomi called as he reached for the doorknob. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Julian paused but didn't turn around. What happened to you, Naomi? Who hurt you so badly that you can't accept help without seeing it as an attack? The question hit her like a blow to the chest. Naomi sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. His name was Derek, she said quietly. I met him right after Mom died. He seemed so kind, so understanding. He helped me with the shop, with the funeral arrangements. I was lost, and he was there, you know. Julian turned back to face her, his expression softening as he sat beside her on the couch. He convinced me to invest my savings with him, said he could double it in a few months. And I believed him because... Naomi's voice broke. Because I wanted to believe someone cared about me. By the time I realized it was all a lie, he was gone, along with every penny I had. Julian's hand found hers, warm and steady. I'm not Derek. I know, Naomi whispered, but I'm still scared. Of what? Of trusting again? Of letting someone in only to be left with nothing? Julian squeezed her hand gently. I understand why you reacted the way you did about the rent. I should have asked you first. It was presumptuous of me. Naomi looked up at him. Why did you do it? Because I couldn't stand the thought of you losing your home, Julian said simply. I saw how much it meant to you, and I had the means to help. I didn't think beyond that. His honesty disarmed her. I'm not used to people helping without wanting. Something in return. Then get used to it, Julian said with a small smile. Because that's who I am. Yes, I have money. But that's not all I am, Naomi. I'd like a chance to show you the rest. Naomi felt something shift inside her. Maybe it was time to stop judging Julian by her past experiences. Maybe it was time to trust again. I'd like that too, she said softly. Julian's eyes dropped to her lips and Naomi felt her heart race. Slowly, giving her time to pull away, he leaned in. When his lips met hers, Naomi felt like she was falling and flying at the same time. The kiss was gentle at first, then deeper as Naomi's arms wrapped around Julian's neck. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. I've wanted to do that since I saw you in the rain, Julian admitted, his forehead resting against hers. Naomi smiled. Even with my mascara running and eggs all over the sidewalk? Especially. Then, Julian chuckled, you were beautiful and real and completely unimpressed by me. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Naomi stroked his cheek. I'm sorry for what I said earlier. It's forgotten, Julian assured her. Now about that cheesecake I promised, Let's stay here, Naomi suggested. I can make coffee and we can just talk. Julian smiled, looking relieved. I'd like that. They spent the evening on Naomi's couch, talking about everything and nothing. Julian told her about growing up in his father's shadow, about his mother who had died when he was 15, about his dreams for his company beyond what his father had built. Naomi shared memories of her mother, of growing up surrounded by flowers, of the teacher she had hoped to become before life took a different turn. When Julian finally left just before midnight, he kissed her again at the door. I'll call you tomorrow. Naomi watched him walk to his car, her heart lighter than it had been in months. Maybe, just maybe, she could let herself believe in something good again. The next morning, Naomi woke to a text from Julian. Thinking of you. Dinner tonight? She smiled and typed back, Yes, my turn to cook. At the flower shop, Rosa immediately noticed her change in mood. So the handsome man fixed everything. Naomi smiled. We talked, really talked. He's nothing like I thought he was. Sometimes the heart sees what is invisible to the eye, Rosa said wisely. The morning passed in a blur of customers and flower arrangements. Around noon, the shop door opened and Naomi looked up, hoping to see Julian. Instead, a woman in expensive designer clothes stood there, surveying the small shop with barely concealed disdain. Can I help you? Naomi asked. The woman approached the counter. I'm looking for Naomi Brooks. That's me. The woman looked her up and down, as if assessing her worth and finding it lacking. I'm Victoria Hart, Julian's sister. Naomi's smile faltered. Oh, it's nice to meet you. Victoria didn't return the sentiment. Let me be direct, Ms. Brooks. I know my brother has taken a sudden interest in you, and I'm here to find out why. Naomi bristled at her tone. Shouldn't you be asking him that? Julian has always had a soft spot for projects, Victoria said, running a manicured finger along the counter. People he thinks he can fix. I'm not a project, Naomi said firmly. Victoria smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course not, but you should know that Julian is currently negotiating the most important deal of his career. The Riverside project requires investors who value stability and good judgment. My brother's personal life reflects on the company. What are you saying? Naomi asked, though she knew exactly what Victoria was implying. I'm saying that Julian needs to focus on what's important right now, Victoria replied coolly. And a dalliance with a florist who can't pay her rent might send the wrong message to our investors. Naomi felt like she had been slapped. You checked up on me. It's what I do, Victoria said with a shrug. Protect my brother and our family's company. Julian is too trusting. He doesn't see how people might take advantage of his generosity. I'm not taking advantage of him, Naomi said, her voice shaking with anger. Victoria raised an eyebrow. No? Then why did he pay your rent? 3 months in advance, I believe. Naomi felt her face flush. That was his choice. I didn't ask for it. But you accepted it, Victoria pointed out. Just like you'll accept more, I'm sure, as time goes on. A new car, perhaps, a better apartment, and all it costs you is a few sweet smiles and whatever else you offer my brother. You need to leave, Naomi said, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Now. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a check. I came prepared to offer you a more direct arrangement. $20,000 to walk away from Julian. No drama, no scenes. Just disappear from his life. Naomi stared at the check in disbelief. You think you can buy me off? Everyone has a price, Victoria said, sliding the check across the counter. This is twice what you make in a year at this little shop. Enough. To pay off your debts and start fresh somewhere else. Naomi took the check and tore it in half. Get out. Victoria looked genuinely surprised. You're making a mistake. The only mistake would be letting someone like you tell me what to do, Naomi said, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside her. Julian is a grown man who can make his own decisions. And for the record, I care about him. Not his money, not his name, just him. Victoria picked up the torn check. We'll see how long that lasts when the novelty wears off. Julian lives in a world you can't even imagine. Eventually, he'll realize that. After Victoria left, Naomi had to sit down, her legs shaking. How had such a perfect evening with Julian turned into this nightmare the next day? She picked up her phone to call him, then hesitated. What if Victoria was right? What if Julian was just going through a phase, slumming it with someone like her? What if eventually he looked at her and saw all the ways she didn't fit into his world? The shop door opened again, and Naomi looked up, half expecting Victoria to have returned. Instead, Julian stood there, smiling. "I couldn't wait until dinner," he said, crossing to her. His smile faded when he saw her face. "What's wrong? You look upset." Naomi hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Your sister was just here." Julian's expression darkened. "Victoria, what did she want?" "To warn me away from you," Naomi said, watching his reaction carefully. "She seems to think I'm after your money." Julian ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I'm sorry. Victoria has appointed herself as the family gatekeeper since our father died. She means well, but she overstepped. She offered me $20,000 to disappear from your life," Naomi said quietly. Julian's face went from anger to shock. "She did what?" "Don't worry, I tore up the check," Naomi said, attempting a smile. "Apparently I'm bad for your image with investors." Julian took her hands in his. "Naomi, listen to me. Victoria doesn't speak for me, and she certainly doesn't make decisions about who I spend my time with. I'm sorry she upset you." "She didn't upset me," Naomi lied. "But she did make me think. Are we kidding ourselves, Julian? We come from completely different worlds." "Do we?" Julian challenged. "Or do we just have different bank accounts? Because when I'm with you, I don't feel like we're from different planets. I feel like I've found someone who sees me. Not my money, not my name, just me." His words echoed what Naomi had said to Victoria, and she felt her doubts begin to fade. "I do see you," she admitted softly, "and I like what I see." Julian's smile returned. "Then that's all that matters. The rest is just noise." He leaned down and kissed her, right there in the middle of her shop. Naomi forgot about Victoria, about their different worlds, about everything except the feeling of Julian's arms around her. When they broke apart, Julian pressed his forehead to hers. "I have to get back to a meeting, but I needed to see you." "Still on for dinner tonight?" Naomi nodded. "I'll make my mom's famous lasagna." "I can't wait," Julian said, kissing her once more before leaving. After he was gone, Naomi touched her lips, still tingling from his kiss. Maybe Julian was right. Maybe the rest was just noise. But as she remembered Victoria's cold assessment of her worth, a seed of doubt remained. Could someone like Julian Hart really love someone like her? Or was this all just a beautiful dream that would eventually end, leaving her heart in pieces once again? The scent of garlic and tomato sauce filled Naomi's small apartment as she prepared her mother's lasagna recipe. She had spent more money than she should have on good ingredients, wanting everything to be perfect for Julian. As she layered the pasta, cheese, and sauce, Naomi thought about Victoria's visit. Despite Julian's reassurances, doubt lingered in her mind. Could a relationship between people from such different worlds really work? The doorbell rang at exactly 7 o'clock. Julian stood there with a bottle of wine and a warm smile that made Naomi's heart skip. "Something smells amazing," he said, kissing her cheek as he entered. Naomi took the wine. "My mom's lasagna. It was her specialty." Julian looked around the apartment. "You've cleaned up. You didn't have to do that for me." "I wanted to," Naomi admitted. She had spent her lunch break tidying up, suddenly self-conscious about her modest home. As they sat down to dinner, Julian took his first bite of lasagna and closed his eyes in appreciation. "This is incredible," Naomi smiled, pleased. "My mum would have liked you, I think. She always said you could tell a lot about a person by how they enjoy food." "And what does my appreciation for your lasagna tell?" "You?" Julian asked playfully. "That you recognize quality when you taste it," Naomi replied. They ate and talked, falling into the easy rhythm they had established the night before. Julian told her about his day, about the Riverside project moving forward, about a difficult meeting with investors. Victoria was there, he mentioned casually. She seemed off today. Naomi tensed but tried not to show it. "Did you talk to her about her visit to my shop?" Julian nodded. After the meeting, she admitted what she did but didn't apologize. That's not Victoria's style. She's protective of you, Naomi said, trying to be fair. She's controlling, Julian corrected. Just like our father was. After he died, she took it upon herself to carry on his legacy, including dictating how I should live my life. What would your father have thought of me? Naomi asked, the question slipping out before she could stop it. Julian was quiet for a moment. Honestly, he wouldn't have approved. Not because there's anything wrong with you, but because you don't fit his idea of who I should be with. George, Hart had very specific ideas about suitable matches for his children. And what do you think? Naomi pressed. Julian reached across the table and took her hand. I think my father never understood what truly matters in life. He measured everything in dollars and prestige. I don't want to live that way. After dinner, they moved to the couch with glasses of wine. Julian put his arm around Naomi, and she leaned into him, feeling safe and content. Tell me more about your dream for the community garden, Julian said. I want to hear everything. Naomi's eyes lit up as she described her vision. I'd want to teach children about where food comes from, how to grow things with their own hands. So many city kids never see a vegetable that isn't wrapped in plastic. You'd be an amazing teacher, Julian said, watching her face as she spoke. Your passion shows in every word. Naomi blushed under his gaze. It's just a dream. It doesn't have to be, Julian said seriously. I meant what I said yesterday. The Riverside project needs someone with your vision. Naomi hesitated. Is that why you're interested in me? Because I fit into your project plans? Julian looked surprised. Of course not. The project was already in motion before I met you. But when you told me about your dream, it was like a missing puzzle piece falling into place. He shifted to face her directly. Naomi, I'm interested in you because you're genuine. In my world, that's rare. People are always wanting something. From me, my money, my influence, my name. But you tear up checks and refuse help and insist on splitting the bill. Naomi smiled at that. I must seem very strange to you. Not strange, Julian said, brushing her hair back from her face. Refreshing, challenging, real. When he kissed her, Naomi felt herself melt into him. Everything else, her doubts, Victoria's, warnings, their different backgrounds, faded away in the warmth of his embrace. Later, as they lay curled together on the couch watching an old movie, Naomi found herself wondering how quickly life could change. A week ago she had been alone, struggling and closed off to the possibility of love. Now Julian Hart was in her life, opening doors she hadn't even known existed. What are you thinking about? Julian asked, noticing her faraway look. How unexpected. Life can be, Naomi replied honestly. If my grocery bag hadn't torn that day, Julian smiled. I believe some things are meant to be. Maybe not the bag tearing, but us meeting somehow, somewhere. Are you secretly a romantic, Julian Hart? Naomi teased. Only since I met you, he admitted, pulling her closer. The following week passed in a blur of work and evenings with Julian. He took her to dinner at exclusive restaurants where the staff knew him by name. She cooked for him in her small kitchen. They walked through the city, hand in hand, talking for hours about everything and nothing. At the flower shop, business picked up unexpectedly. A major hotel chain ordered weekly arrangements for their Chicago locations, and a wedding planner brought in 3 new clients. It's like our luck is finally changing, Rosa remarked, as they prepared the day's orders. Naomi smiled, thinking of Julian. Maybe luck had nothing to do with it. But she pushed the thought away, not wanting to believe Julian would interfere with her business without telling her. On Friday afternoon, as Naomi was closing the shop, a delivery truck pulled up outside. The driver carried in a large envelope, addressed to her. What's this? Naomi wondered aloud, opening it. Inside was a set of architectural drawings, the community garden from Julian's office, but with notable changes. The designs now included details that reflected exactly what Naomi had described to Julian. Raised beds, sized for children's hands, a butterfly garden, a small pond for aquatic plants. A note in Julian's handwriting read, "The investors approved. The garden addition. The project is yours if you want it. No pressure, no strings attached. Naomi stared at the plans, emotions warring inside her. This was her dream, offered on a silver platter. But could she accept such a gift from Julian? Would it change the balance between them? She was still mulling it over that evening when Julian picked her up for dinner. He had gotten them tickets to the symphony, and Naomi wore her best dress, a simple blue one that she saved for special occasions. "You look beautiful," Julian said when he saw her. In the concert hall, Naomi felt out of place among the well-dressed crowd. Several people greeted Julian, looking at her curiously. She overheard one woman whisper to another, "Who is she? I've never seen her before." Julian seemed oblivious to the stares and whispers, completely focused on Naomi and making sure she was comfortable. When he took her hand during the performance, Naomi felt anchored by his touch. After the concert, Julian suggested they take a walk along the lakefront. The night was clear, with stars visible despite the city lights. "Did you get the plans I sent?" Julian asked as they walked. Naomi nodded. "Yes, they're beautiful, Julian. You incorporated everything I mentioned." "So, what do you think?" Julian prompted when she didn't continue. Naomi stopped walking and faced him. "I think it's an incredible opportunity, but I'm not sure if I should accept it." Julian frowned. "Why not?" "Because it feels like we're mixing business and personal. And because I'm not sure I'm qualified," Naomi admitted. Julian took both her hands in his. "First, you're more than qualified. You have the vision and the heart for it. Second, this isn't me giving you a job because we're together. The project needs what you can bring to it. If you want, you can interview with the board like any other candidate." "You do that?" Naomi asked, surprised. "I'd do anything to make you comfortable with this," Julian said seriously. "I believe in you, Naomi. But more importantly, I respect you. If you don't want the project, just say the word." Looking into his eyes, Naomi saw only sincerity. "I'll think about it." Julian nodded, accepting her answer without pushing. They continued their walk, the topic shifting to lighter things. When they reached a quiet spot overlooking the water, Julian suddenly seemed nervous. "What's wrong?" Naomi asked. Julian took a deep breath. "There's something I need to tell you. I've been putting it off because, well, I was afraid it might change things between us." Naomi felt a chill of fear. "What is it?" "The Riverside project is bigger than I've let on," Julian said. "If it succeeds, it will change my company completely, taking it in a new direction, focused on community development rather than luxury properties." "That sounds like a good thing," Naomi said, puzzled by his seriousness. "It is. But there's more," Julian continued. "My father's oldest friend, Lawrence Winters, controls a significant share of Heart Developments. He doesn't approve of the Riverside project. He thinks it's a mistake to move away from what my father built." "Can he stop you?" Naomi asked. Julian sighed. "He's been trying. He's lined up other board members against me. The only way to secure the project is for me to marry before my 30th birthday." Naomi blinked in confusion. "What? Why?" "It's in my father's will," Julian explained. "He left controlling interest in the company to me, but with conditions. Until I turn 30 or get married, Lawrence has veto power over major company decisions. My father believed marriage would make me more stable, more likely to preserve his legacy." Naomi felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet. "When is your birthday?" 3 months from now," Julian said. "And you're telling me this now because—" Naomi felt her heart race as she trailed off, not daring to complete the thought. Julian took her hands again. "I'm telling you because I don't want secrets between us, not because I expect anything from you. We've only known each other for 2 weeks. I know that's not enough time to fall in love," Naomi finished for him. Julian looked vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. "Is it?" Naomi didn't know how to answer. Her feelings for Julian had grown so quickly, so intensely. But was it love? And even if it was it the kind of love that could sustain a marriage? "I care about you, Julian," she said carefully. "More than I thought possible in such a short time. But marriage is a huge step, one I'm not ready to consider yet." Relief crossed Julian's face. "I'm not asking you to marry me, Naomi, not right now. I just wanted you to know the whole situation. The Riverside project means everything to me, but I won't rush us to save it." "What will happen if you don't get married?" In time? Naomi asked. Julian shrugged. Lawrence will block the project. The affordable housing units will be replaced with luxury condos. The community spaces, including your garden, will be scaled back or eliminated entirely. That's not fair, Naomi said, anger rising on Julian's behalf. My father wasn't always fair, Julian said with a sad smile. But I've accepted the terms of his will. If I can't find a way to save Riverside as it is, I'll start over with a new project, one that Lawrence can't touch. Naomi was touched by his determination. You really believe in this, don't you? I do, Julian said simply. It's the first thing I've done that feels truly mine, not an extension of my father's vision. They walked back to Julian's car in thoughtful silence. Naomi's mind was racing with everything Julian had told her. The situation was more complicated than she had realized. As they drove back to her apartment, Julian broke the silence. I hope I haven't ruined our evening with all this. Naomi reached over and squeezed his hand. You haven't. I appreciate your honesty. At her door, Julian kissed her goodnight, a gentle kiss that held promise but asked for nothing. I'll call you tomorrow, he said before leaving. Inside, Naomi kicked off her shoes and collapsed onto the couch, emotionally exhausted. Julian's revelation about the will and the marriage condition had caught her completely off guard. She knew now why Victoria had been so hostile. If Julian married someone Victoria didn't approve of, it would affect not just the family's social standing, but the entire company's future. The next morning, Naomi woke to a text from Julian. Breakfast? There's something else I want to talk to you about. They met at a small cafe near her apartment. Julian looked tired, as if he hadn't slept much either. I've been thinking about what we discussed last night, he said after they ordered. And I want to make something clear. I would never ask you to marry me to save the Riverside project. Naomi nodded, relieved. I know that, Julian. But there's another option I've been considering, Julian continued. I could sell my shares in Hart Developments and start a new company, one without my father's restrictions. Naomi stared at him in shock. You would give up your family's company? If that's what it takes to build something I truly believe in. Yes, Julian said firmly. My father's legacy isn't sacred, Naomi. What matters is creating something meaningful, something that helps people. Have you talked to Victoria about this? Naomi asked. Julian sighed. Not yet. She'll be furious. The Hart name means everything to her. As their food arrived, Naomi tried to process what Julian was saying. He was willing to walk away from his inheritance, his family legacy, to pursue his vision and to do it on his own terms without pressuring her. Whatever you decide, I support you, Naomi said finally. Julian smiled, relief in his eyes. That means more than you know. After breakfast, Julian walked Naomi to the flower shop. Outside the door, he kissed her goodbye, lingering a moment longer than usual. I have meetings all day, but I'll call you tonight, he promised. The day passed, in a blur of customers and arrangements. Around lunchtime, the shop door opened, and Naomi looked up to see a distinguished older man in an expensive suit. Can I help you? She asked. The man approached the counter. Ms. Brooks, I'm Lawrence Winters. Naomi felt her stomach drop. This was the man Julian had mentioned, the one who opposed his plans for the Riverside project. Mr. Winters, she said, cautiously. What can I do for you? Lawrence surveyed the small shop with the same critical eye Victoria had used. Julian tells me you're quite talented with flowers. I can see why. This shop has character. Naomi wasn't sure if that was a compliment or not. Thank you. I'll be direct, Ms. Brooks, Lawrence said, his tone businesslike. Julian has told me about your relationship. He seems quite taken with you. The feeling is mutual, Naomi said carefully. Lawrence nodded. I'm sure it is. Julian is a catch by anyone's standards. Handsome, wealthy, kind-hearted to a fault. His kindness is one of the things I love most about him, Naomi said, the word love slipping out naturally. Lawrence's eyebrows rose slightly. Love? After such a short time, impressive. Naomi bristled at his skepticism. Sometimes it doesn't take long to know. Indeed, Lawrence agreed smoothly. Though in my experience, hasty emotions often lead to regrettable decisions. Is there something specific you wanted to discuss, Mr. Winters? Naomi asked, tiring of the verbal sparring. Lawrence's expression hardened slightly. "Julian may have mentioned the terms of his father's will to you." "He did," Naomi confirmed. "Then you know the situation with the Riverside project," Lawrence continued. "Julian is determined to move forward with it despite my reservations. It seems like a worthwhile project to me," Naomi said. Lawrence sighed. Julian has his father's stubbornness, but not his business sense. George built Hart Developments on luxury properties because they're profitable and stable. This community development nonsense is a risk we can't afford. "Sometimes risks are worth taking," Naomi countered. "Not with a family legacy at stake," Lawrence said firmly. "Which brings me to why I'm here. Julian mentioned last night that he's considering selling his shares and starting a new company." Naomi kept her expression neutral, though she was surprised Julian had already spoken to Lawrence about it. "That would be a catastrophic mistake," Lawrence continued. "One that would destroy everything his father built. And for what? A misguided attempt to help people who can't afford our properties anyway." Naomi felt her temper rising. "Maybe Julian believes there's more to life than profit margins." Lawrence gave her a calculating look. "Perhaps, or perhaps his judgment is clouded by other factors. You, for instance." "Me?" Naomi asked, genuinely surprised. "Julian has changed since he met you," Lawrence said. "He's more defiant, more willing to throw away everything for his ideals." He said the last word as if it left a bad taste in his mouth. "I haven't asked Julian to change anything about his life," Naomi said firmly. "Not directly, perhaps," Lawrence conceded. "But your influence is clear. Which is why I've come to make you an offer." Here it comes, Naomi thought, another attempt to buy her off. "I will personally ensure that your community garden project is fully funded," Lawrence said. "Not as part of Riverside, but as a separate endeavor. You'll have complete control, a proper salary, everything you need to make your dream a reality." "In so. The exchange for what?" Naomi asked, though she already knew the answer. "In exchange for you stepping back from your relationship with Julian," Lawrence said bluntly. "At least until after his 30th birthday. Once I've secured control of the Riverside project, what Julian does with his personal life will be his own business." Naomi felt a cold anger settle in her chest. "Let me get this straight. You want me to break Julian's heart and betray his trust in exchange for my garden project?" Lawrence had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "I'm trying to protect Julian from making a mistake he'll regret for the rest of his life." "By manipulating the woman he cares about," Naomi challenged. "That doesn't sound like protection to me. You can't possibly understand what's at stake." "Here," Lawrence said, his voice hardening. "The Hart legacy spans generations." "I understand perfectly," Naomi said, meeting his gaze without flinching. "You want Julian to be just like his father, even if it makes him miserable. You care more about buildings and money than about the person Julian wants to be." Lawrence's face flushed with anger. "You know nothing about Julian or what's best for him. You've known him for what? 2 weeks? I've known him since he was born. And in all that time, have you ever asked him what he wants?" Naomi demanded. "Or have you just assumed that what George Hart wanted is what Julian should want too?" For a moment, Lawrence seemed taken aback by her direct question. Then his expression hardened again. "This conversation is clearly pointless," he said, turning to leave. "But remember this, Ms. Brooks. If Julian gives up his birthright for you, he will resent you for it eventually. And where will that leave your fairy tale romance?" After he left, Naomi had to sit down, her legs shaking with anger and distress. First Victoria, now Lawrence. Julian's entire world seemed determined to keep them apart. The worst part was that Lawrence's final words had struck a nerve. What if Julian did resent her someday? What if, years from now, he looked back and regretted giving up his family company for her? When Julian called that evening, Naomi didn't mention Lawrence's visit. She wasn't sure why. Perhaps she needed time to process it, or perhaps she didn't want to add to Julian's burdens. They made plans to meet for dinner the next day, and Naomi tried to push her worries aside. But that night she lay awake for hours, Lawrence's warning echoing in her mind. Was she being selfish by staying with Julian when it might cost him everything he had worked for? The next day was Saturday, and the flower shop was busier than usual with weekend customers. Naomi welcomed the distraction, throwing herself into her work. In the afternoon, just before closing time, a delivery arrived, a small package addressed to Naomi. Inside was a velvet box containing a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a tiny daisy. The note with it read, "To remind you of the day we met. Can't wait to see you tonight." Naomi's heart swelled at the thoughtful gift. It wasn't extravagant or showy, just simple and meaningful, exactly what she would have chosen herself. That evening, when Julian picked her up, she was wearing the bracelet. His face lit up when he noticed it. "You like it?" he asked. "I love it," Naomi said sincerely. "It's perfect." Julian took her to a small, intimate restaurant tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. As they ate, Naomi noticed that Julian seemed distracted, almost nervous. "Is everything okay?" she asked after he checked his watch for the third time. Julian gave her an apologetic smile. "Sorry, I'm a little preoccupied tonight. I had a long meeting with Lawrence yesterday." "About selling your shares?" Naomi asked. Julian nodded. "He was furious, as expected. He said I was betraying my father's memory." "I'm sorry," Naomi said, feeling guilty for not mentioning Lawrence's visit to her shop. "Don't be," Julian said, reaching for her hand across the table. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Riverside is just the beginning. I want to build something meaningful, something that matters." After dinner, Julian suggested they take a walk. He led her to a small park nearby where lanterns had been strung in the trees, casting a warm glow over a secluded garden area. Naomi looked around in wonder. "Did you arrange this?" Julian nodded, suddenly looking very nervous. "There's something I want to ask you." Naomi's heart began to race as Julian took both her hands in his. This was too soon. Way too soon for what she thought might be coming. "Julian," she began, but he shook his head gently. "Let me say this first," he requested. "Naomi, these past weeks have been the most real, most honest time of my life. You've shown me what it means to live authentically, to care about things that truly matter." He took a deep breath. "I know it's fast, crazy fast, but I've never been more certain of anything. I'm falling in love with you." Naomi felt tears spring to her eyes. "Julian, I'm not proposing," Julian clarified quickly. "Not yet. That would be too soon even for us. But I want you to know where I stand. I'm in this for real, Naomi, not because of some condition in my father's will, not because of the Riverside project, but because of you, because of how I feel when I'm with you." Relief and joy flooded through Naomi. "I'm falling in love with you too," she admitted softly. Julian's face lit up with happiness. He pulled her close and kissed her, a kiss full of promise and possibilities. When they broke apart, Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key. "What's this?" Naomi asked. "A key to a small cottage I own in Michigan," Julian explained. "It's nothing fancy, just a simple place on the lake that my mother loved. I want to take you there next weekend, to show you a part of my life that's real and true, away from the business world and family pressures." Naomi was touched by the gesture. "I'd love that." As they walked back to Julian's car, hand in hand, Naomi felt a sense of peace settle over her. Despite Victoria and Lawrence's interference, despite the complications of Julian's situation, what they were building together felt right. But later that night, after Julian had dropped her off with a lingering kiss and a promise to call in the morning, Naomi found herself thinking about Lawrence's warning again. Julian was prepared to give up his family legacy for her, for them. The weight of that responsibility was overwhelming. As she got ready for bed, Naomi's phone rang with an unknown number. Thinking it might be Julian calling from a different phone, she answered. "Hello? Ms. Brooks, this is Diana Jefferson from the Chicago Tribune," a woman's voice said. "I'm working on a story about Julian Hart's surprising new romance. Would you be willing to answer a few questions?" Naomi froze. "How did you get this number?" "That's not important," Diana replied smoothly. "What's interesting is how quickly Julian Hart has fallen for someone so different from his usual circle. Our readers are fascinated. I have nothing to say to you," Naomi said firmly. "Please don't call me again." She hung up, her hands shaking. The media was getting involved now. How long before they started digging into her past, finding out about Derek and the money he stole? How long before Julian's face was splashed across tabloids with headlines questioning his judgment? Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. "Just got home, already missing you, sweet dreams." Naomi smiled despite her worries. Whatever complications lay ahead, what she felt for Julian was real. And for now, that would have to be enough. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. Naomi woke to the sound of her phone ringing. It was Rosa, her voice urgent. "Naomi, have you seen the newspaper?" "No, why?" Naomi asked, sitting up in bed. "There's an article about you and Julian Hart. You need to see it." Naomi's stomach dropped. "I'll call you back." She threw on clothes and ran to the corner store. The Sunday edition of the Chicago Tribune was on display at the counter. On the front page of the lifestyle section was a photo of her and Julian walking hand in hand after dinner. The headline read, "Hart's New Romance, Billionaire Developer." "Falls for flower shop girl?" With shaking hands, Naomi bought the paper and read the article on her walk home. It was everything she had feared. Condescending speculation about her background, quotes from sources close to the Hart family, expressing concern about Julian's sudden change in behavior, and thinly veiled suggestions that she was after his money. The worst part was a quote from a former classmate who remembered her relationship with Derek. Naomi always had a thing for men with money. There was this guy, Derek, she dated, who claimed to be an investment broker. She gave him all her savings. Then he disappeared. Some people never learn. Naomi felt sick. The article painted her as either a gold digger or a naive fool. Neither image was one she wanted Julian to see. Her phone rang again. It was Julian. "Have you seen it?" he asked without preamble. "Yes," Naomi said quietly. "It's awful." "I'm coming." "Hover," Julian said, his voice tight with anger. "This is unacceptable." When Julian arrived at her apartment 20 minutes later, he was furious. "I've already called my lawyers. They're demanding a retraction. This kind of personal attack is completely unprofessional." Naomi sat on the couch, the newspaper spread out in front of her. "The part about Derek is true, though. I did give him my savings. I was stupid and trusting." Julian sat beside her and took her hand. "You were betrayed by someone you cared about. That doesn't make you stupid, Naomi. It makes him a criminal." "What about the rest?" Naomi asked. "The part where they say I'm not good enough for you? That I'm from the wrong side of the tracks? That part's true too." Julian's eyes flashed with anger. "No, it's not. There's no good enough here. There's just you and me and what we feel for each other. The rest is noise, remember?" Naomi wanted to believe him, but the article had reopened. All her doubts. "This is just the beginning, Julian. If we stay together, there will be more articles, more speculation. Your business will suffer. Your family name—" "I don't care about my family name," Julian interrupted. "I care about you." "You say that now," Naomi said, voicing her deepest fear. "But what about a year from now, 5 years? When the novelty wears off, and you're left with someone who doesn't fit into your world?" Julian looked hurt. "Is that what you think this is? Novelty?" "I don't know what to think anymore," Naomi admitted. "Everything's happening so fast. We've known each other less than a month, and already we're dealing with family opposition, media attention, and your company's future hanging in the balance." Julian was quiet for a moment. "You're right. It is a lot. Too much, maybe." He stood up, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe we should take a step back, give you some space to think." Naomi felt her heart crack. She hadn't expected him to agree so readily. "Maybe we should." Julian looked down at her, his expression pained. "Just tell me one thing, Naomi. Do you still want this? Us, despite everything?" "Because I do. More than anything." Naomi wanted to say yes, to throw herself into his arms and forget all the complications. But the newspaper article lay between them like a warning. Their worlds were colliding in ways that hurt them both. "I need time," she said finally, "to think about what all this means." Julian nodded, accepting her answer with dignity, though she could see the pain in his eyes. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready to talk." After he left, Naomi curled up on the couch and cried. Everything had been so perfect, and now it was falling apart. The fairy tale was crashing into reality, and she didn't know if their newfound love was strong enough to survive. On Monday morning, Naomi threw herself into work, grateful for the distraction. But around noon, Victoria Hart walked into the flower shop, looking surprisingly subdued. "Miss Brooks," Victoria said formally, "may I speak with you in private?" Naomi nodded to Rosa, who discreetly moved to the front of the shop to help a customer. "If you've come to gloat about the newspaper article, I'm really not in the mood," Naomi said tiredly. Victoria shook her head. "Actually, I came to apologize." Naomi stared at her in surprise. "Apologize?" "The article," Victoria explained. "Those quotes from sources close to the family." That was Lawrence. "And me, we spoke to the reporter hoping to discourage your relationship with Julian." "Well, it worked," Naomi said bitterly. "Julian and I are taking a break." Instead of looking pleased, Victoria seemed troubled. "That's actually why I'm here. I saw Julian this morning. He's devastated. He agreed we needed space," Naomi pointed out, "because he thought that's what you wanted," Victoria countered. "Julian has never looked like this before, not even when our father died." Naomi felt a pang in her heart. "I didn't want to hurt him." "Then why did you?" Victoria asked directly. Naomi met her gaze. "Because I'm afraid I'll hurt him more in the long run. People like Lawrence and you made it very clear that I don't belong in Julian's world. The newspaper just confirmed it for everyone else." Victoria was quiet for a moment. "I was wrong," she finally said. "About you. About what Julian needs." Naomi raised an eyebrow skeptically. "What changed your mind?" "Julian did," Victoria admitted. "He told me this morning that he's selling his shares in Hart Developments. He's walking away from everything our father built because he believes you're worth it." "I never asked him to do that," Naomi said firmly. "I know," Victoria said. "That's what finally made me understand. You're not after his money or his name. You actually care about him. The real him, not the heir to the Hart fortune." Naomi felt tears well in her eyes. "I'm falling in love with him." Victoria nodded. "I can see that now. And Julian, I've never seen my brother like this. He's always done what was expected of him, followed our father's plan. But with you, he's found his own path. As his sister, I should be supporting that, not fighting it." "What about Lawrence?" Naomi asked. "He still opposes the Riverside project." "Lawrence is a dinosaur," Victoria said dismissively. "He wants to preserve my father's legacy exactly as it was. But Julian is right. The company needs to evolve." Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "This is why I really came. It's a way to save Riverside without Julian having to sell his shares or rush into marriage." Naomi took the folder cautiously. Inside were legal documents, complex and filled with terms she didn't understand. "It's a voting trust agreement," Victoria explained. "If I add my shares to Julian's, we'd have enough voting power to override Lawrence. I was always entitled to shares in the company, but I let Julian handle everything after father died. Now it's time I took an active role." Naomi looked up in surprise. "You'd do that? Side with Julian against Lawrence?" Victoria nodded. "Family is more important than business. It took seeing Julian willing to give everything up for love to make me realize that." Naomi studied Victoria's face, looking for signs of deception. "Why show this to me instead of Julian?" "Because Julian won't take my help if he thinks you're gone for good," Victoria said bluntly. "He's being stubborn, saying none of it matters. Without you. So I need to know, do you love my brother enough to fight for him? Because if you don't, I'll tear up these papers right now and let him start over somewhere else." It was a moment of truth. Naomi thought about all the reasons she had pulled away from Julian, the differences in their backgrounds, the media attention, the family complications. Did any of that matter compared to what they were building together? "I love him," Naomi said firmly. "Enough to fight for him, for us." Victoria smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her usually stern face. "Then let's go find my stubborn brother and talk some sense into him." 30 minutes later, they were in Julian's office. He looked up in surprise when Naomi walked in with Victoria. "What's going on?" he asked, his eyes fixed on Naomi. "Your sister and I have been talking," Naomi said, "and I think we found a solution to the Riverside project issue." Victoria placed the folder on Julian's desk. "I'm adding my shares to yours. Together we can outvote Lawrence. Julian looked stunned. Victoria, you always supported Father's vision. Why the change of heart? Because I've seen what you're willing to sacrifice for what you believe in and who you love, Victoria said. Father built this company for us, not for Lawrence Winters. It's time we ran it our way. Julian turned to Naomi. And you, what changed your mind? Naomi stepped closer to his desk. I realized that I was letting fear make my decisions. Fear of not fitting in. Fear of what people would say. Fear of not being enough for you in the long run. You've always been enough, Julian said softly. More than enough. I know that now, Naomi said. I love you, Julian Hart. All of you. The businessman, the dreamer, the man who stops to help strangers pick up their groceries in the rain. Julian stood and came around the desk, taking Naomi's hands in his. I love you too. These past two. Days without you have been the worst of my life. Victoria cleared her throat. I'll leave you two alone. The papers are ready to sign when you're ready. And Julian, I'm sorry for everything, including that awful newspaper article. After Victoria left, Julian pulled Naomi into his arms. I was so afraid I'd lost you. Never, Naomi promised, but we need to take things slowly, Julian. There's still so much we don't know about each other. Julian nodded. As slow as you want. All that matters is that we're together. The following weekend, Julian took Naomi to the lakeside cottage in Michigan as planned. It was a simple, rustic place, nothing like what she had expected from a man of Julian's wealth. Inside were family photos, worn, comfortable furniture, and shelves of old books. My mother loved it here, Julian explained as he showed her around. She said it was the only place she could be herself, away from the social pressures of being a Hart. That night, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset over the lake, Julian took Naomi's hand. I've been thinking about what you said about taking things slowly, he began, and you're right. We have plenty of time to figure out our future together. Naomi squeezed his hand. Thank you for understanding. But there is something I want to ask you, Julian continued. It's not a proposal, not yet, but I want you to know where I see us heading. From his pocket, he pulled out a small box. Inside was not a ring, but a key. This is a key to this cottage, Julian explained. My special place. I want it to be our special place. Somewhere we can come to be ourselves, away from the noise of the city and the pressures of our different worlds. Naomi was touched by the gesture. I'd love that. Julian smiled. There's one more thing. I've drawn up papers for the community garden project. It's yours to run, independent of both our relationship and the larger Riverside development. No strings attached. Julian, I can't accept. Yes, you can. Julian interrupted gently. Your vision for that garden is exactly what the project needs. You'd be doing it on your own merit, not because of us. The committee interviewed 3 other candidates, and they all agreed you were the best person for the job. Naomi felt tears of happiness spring to her eyes. You really believe in me, don't you? Completely, Julian affirmed. Just as you believe in me. That's what love is, Naomi. Seeing the best in each other and helping make those visions real. 6 months later, Naomi stood in the newly completed community garden at the Riverside development. Children from the local elementary school were planting vegetables in the raised beds she had designed. Their laughter filled the air as they discovered the joys of digging in the dirt and nurturing growing things. The garden had been a success beyond her wildest dreams. Already it had been featured in urban development magazines and was being used as a model for similar projects in other cities. Naomi had hired 2 assistants to help run the educational programs while she continued to manage Bloom and Grow. Her mother's flower shop was thriving too, with new clients and a refreshed look that still honored its history. As the children's teacher gathered them for a group photo, Naomi felt a familiar presence beside her. Julian wrapped an arm around her waist, pride evident in his eyes. You've done something amazing here, he said softly. Naomi leaned into him. We both have. The Riverside project had transformed under their combined vision. Julian had insisted on naming the garden area after Naomi's mother, ensuring her legacy lived on through the plants and children who would learn there for generations to come. Victoria had become an unexpected ally, taking a more active role in heart developments, and championing the community-focused projects that Julian believed in. Lawrence Winters had eventually come around when he saw the positive publicity and financial success the Riverside project was generating. "There's something I need to tell you," Julian said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "My 30th birthday is next month." Naomi smiled. "I know, I've been planning a surprise party at the cottage." Julian laughed. "Well, now it's not a surprise. But that's not what I meant." He took both her hands in his. "The deadline in my father's will is approaching, but I want you to know that it doesn't matter anymore. With Victoria's support, the company is secure. Whatever happens between us should be about us, not about business deals or family legacies." Naomi's heart swelled with love for this man who had changed her life in so many ways. "Julian, these past 6 months have been the happiest of my life. We don't need to rush anything." Julian smiled. "I agree. That's why I'm not proposing today." Naomi raised an eyebrow. "You're not?" "No," Julian said, his eyes twinkling. "I'm simply giving you advance notice that I will be proposing on our 1-year anniversary in the exact spot where we first met. That gives us both plenty of time to be absolutely certain this is what we want." Naomi laughed, joy bubbling up inside her. "And what if I say no?" Julian's smile was confident and loving. "Then I'll wait and ask again when you're ready. I'm not going anywhere, Naomi Brooks. I'm in this for the long haul, for forever." As they walked through the garden, hand in hand, Naomi thought about how much had changed since that rainy day when her grocery bag had torn. She had been so closed off, so afraid of being hurt again. Now she was open to possibilities, to love, to a future brighter than any she had imagined. That evening, as they sat on the rooftop of Julian's penthouse, watching the city lights twinkle below, Julian handed Naomi a letter. "What's this?" she asked. "Just something I want you to have," Julian said. "Something to remind you of how much you mean to me." Naomi opened the envelope and began to read. "Dear Naomi, today I turned down the Parkview Tower project. It would have been the most profitable development in Hart history, but it would have meant demolishing a block of historic buildings that house local businesses, much like your flower shop. When the board questioned my decision, I remembered something. You said on our second date, if you love something, you show up for it even when it's hard. You were talking about your mother's shop, but those words have stayed with me. I'm showing up for the kind of company I want to build, for the legacy I want to leave, not my father's vision, but my own. One that honors community and history alongside progress and profit. You taught me that, Naomi. You showed me that true success isn't measured in dollars or square footage, but in the lives we touch and the values we uphold. I'm still showing up." "Always, all my love." Julian, tears filled Naomi's eyes as she finished reading. She looked up at Julian, this extraordinary man who had crashed into her life and changed everything. "I love you," she said simply. Julian pulled her close. "I love you, too, today, tomorrow, forever." As they kissed beneath the stars, Naomi knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. Their love story hadn't been easy or conventional, but it was real and true, built not on fairy tale fantasies, but on genuine understanding, respect, and the kind of love that showed up, even when it was hard. And in the end, that was worth more than all the fortunes in the world.